In the old days, we expected the customer to come to us. We expected them to be at the end of the customer journey. In retail and business today, we actually need to put them at the center, and we need to revolve around them.
All right, this is Heja Framtiden from Retail Experience Live, Kistamässan in Stockholm. I'm here with Ken Hughes. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon.
Could we describe you as an Irish keynote speaker and a consumer and shopper behaviorologist?
That would be good.
Okay.
I'm a CX strategist, so basically customer experience. I'm a consumer side. I'm like Frankenstein. I'm many parts of things. So I'm part sociologist, part anthropologist, part consumer psychologist, part cyber behavioralist. So human behavior. I'm fascinated by human behavior, what makes us who we are. Obviously in my job as a corporate CX strategist, that has me looking at brands and business. Then in my personal development business, I have a whole business about the human mind and personality and how we can develop into the best versions of ourselves. So yeah, I'm just fascinated by humans and how we behave.
Great. So what have you been talking about here today?
Today we are here at Retail Live. So I have just left a room of marketeers who are tasked with bringing their brands and businesses and navigating through the choppy seas of change for the next 5 or 10 years. It's a scary time. 20, 30 years ago, marketing as a discipline was much easier. Retail was much easier. We had one or two types of consumers. We had one channel, which was bricks and mortar. It was very simple. Today, we have 6 different types of consumers, everything from those over 80, traditionalists, to baby boomers, to Gen X, to millennials, to Gen Z, to even the alpha generation now, aged 8 and 9. Each of those generations have different value sets, different ways that they want to have their needs met. So when you bring a business or a brand to market, do you have to bring 6 different versions of it to market, or do you bring one and hope that they all kind of accept it? If you look at the music industry, baby boomers and Gen X had vinyl, Gen X had Walkman, had mobile music, and millennials had digital music, Gen Z have Spotify, streaming. So every generation take what they need, in that case music entertainment, but twist how they want to consume it into new ways. So we look at the same in retail. How do people want to buy today? What do they want to buy? The sharing economy is huge. Do they even want to buy at all? The reality of digital, of a phygital world where it's half physical, half digital. The need for personalization, for tailored product and service. The desire for brands to connect with consumers in authentic ways. People as a consumer today, we really only want to buy or interact with businesses that are genuine, that are authentic, that have a purpose, that have a why, that identify or mirror the values that we hold. So that's really important. Giving experiences to customers that they can share. It's all about experiences to me today. I think if I look at how we self-identified as consumers back in the 80s, we tended to use material possessions to say, this is who I am. So you, Christian, you'd say, look at my house, look at my car, look at my Nike swoosh, and it was kind of, you were saying, look at my Rolex, this is who I am. Whereas today we tend to self-identify. If you look at anyone's social media feed, we self-identify based on the experiences that we're sharing. It's no longer look at me, look at what I own. It's look at me, look at where I am, who I'm with, what I'm doing. And those experiences, we call it experiential equity. So if a brand or business is able to create experiential equity and give it to a consumer who then can share it on their social media and say, this is a brand or business I buy from, this is who I am, that's then a combination of value which they can feel they belong to the brand. So yeah, it's all about sharing experiences, understanding those new consumer values, and if you understand those values, then you can be relevant to the market.
You also launched the term Blue Dot Consumer.
Yes. So the Blue Dot Consumer was a way to kind of focus marketeers particularly, but also all businesses, on the consumer, putting the consumer at the center. So the traditional map, which we used to use in the 80s and 90s, this road map, this paper map that you'd unfold, was old technology. Many divorces happened because of maps. And once you turned it the right way up, you had to know where you are on that map before you can use it. And you also need to know where you're going. Not just the concept, but actually exactly.
That's usually when the conflict starts.
Yeah, that's when the arguments start. We're not here, we're here. But where you grew up as a consumer in that world, you grew up knowing that the world was a big place, the big map, and you're a small part of it. And you had to learn to navigate your way through the world. That was the old way. The new way is what we call the blue dot consumer. It's that Google blue dot pulsing in the middle of the screen. You are placed at the center of your screen. You are placed in the center of the world. Everything else revolves around you. And that's the change. In the old days, we expected the customer to come to us. We expected them to be at the end of the customer journey. In retail and business today, we actually need to put them at the center, and we need to revolve around them. So the best example, I guess, is Uber. Uber is a blue dot product. You sit in the restaurant and we will bring the product to you. You don't have to leave and wave on the street hoping to find a taxi. So this idea that we can actually, all the successful products today tend to focus around customer centricity, building from the customer out. Every brand or business tells you they're customer centric. Few are. They're process centered, brand centered, operationally centered. Even retail as an industry is very logistically, supply chain, operationally focused. It's not actually overly consumer focused.
Yeah. You talk a lot about disruption and how to be sort of disruption ready in a way, and by not waiting for a disruption to happen, but actually taking part of it in it. How is this possible? I mean, how can you prepare yourself for disruption?
Yeah. I guess it's kind of like being a boxer or a fighter. You train and train and train in preparation for the fight. I think disruption is the same. The most common question I'm asked on interviews, on stage, is what will be next? What's the next disruptive thing? And I can give answers. I can say artificial intelligence will be the next significant step change in e-commerce and consumer behavior. I can say the autonomous vehicle will be the next biggest shift in social change, how we move around the world. Once that's unlocked, that will change everything. I mean, if you look at the smartphone, it changed everything. Even things that we don't even predict would change. When Steve Jobs held that device up on stage 10 years ago, 11 years ago, he didn't even know what he was actually about to unleash on the world. So what would be the next disruptive thing? Well, actually nobody knows, because that's why we call it disruption. If we knew, we'd call it predictive change. It would be fantastic. So to answer the question, how do you get ready? I think you need to build organizations that can pivot, that can change quickly. For me, reaction speed is actually the key thing that you need. It's not necessarily putting the right systems in place, even though that helps, the right people in place, that helps. It's actually reacting to the change quickly. If you don't react quickly, the disruption just takes you away like a current in the ocean. So I think building an organization that has flexibility, and that's why startups tend to win these days, because they're small, they're flexible. If there's 6 people in a room working on a concept and suddenly the concept is irrelevant because an app was launched yesterday and it killed their business, those 6 people the next day can pivot and go off in a different direction. You can't do that with a 600-person organization. So I think getting the culture and energy of a startup in big business is important. And that has implications to how we build offices, how we build organizations, the hierarchical shape of them, how we, instead of giving people job roles, we should be giving people job sprints in a team. And so maybe you marketing, engineering, sales, all working together for 90 days to achieve something, and then splitting up and then forming new teams, instead of saying, oh, I am a marketeer and I live in this little box of marketing and that's all I do. So I think we need to change the way we work, the way we think, because otherwise we're going to be this big ship, and then you see the iceberg and you just don't have time to turn. What you need to be is a small speedboat.
Like you said, leap and grow your wings on the way down.
Yeah, I think retail particularly is one of the least innovative industries in the world. We talk, there is innovation here. Yeah, we're sitting here on the exhibit floor, but the people that are here, remember, are the ones that have chosen to be here and have paid for the stands and because they have something to show. They have innovation to show. But The majority of this is the 1%. The other 99% haven't bothered coming to be part of the conversation because they're not the innovative ones. So I think retail needs to be. There was too long a lead time in retail to get things ready. So we have new product development, store development taking 2 and 3 years. You do not have 2 or 3 years. By the time that's ready, your consumer has already changed fundamentally who they are. I was speaking at a conference recently in the retail property sector. I didn't know this, but the average development time for a shopping centre is 12 to 15 years. So from concept idea through to planning, architecture, city planning, and actually cutting the ribbon on the door can take 12 to 15 years. Now, the centre that you designed 12 years ago will not be relevant to the next generation of consumers by the time that ribbon is cut. So I think we need to get faster and better at innovation cycles in retail. And we need to, definitely, I mean, that leap and grow your wings on the way down phrase is about just don't stand and get everything ready now. Just jump and, build as we go. Pivot, change, see what works.
Do you also think it's easy to get blinded by technology and forget that you actually need to create, value and authenticity to the customer?
That's a fantastic point. I think in the current climate, people get so excited by technology that they see the technology as some kind of silver bullet, some magic solution.
Seduced was the word I was
seduced, it's a perfect word. And in retail, we see that all the time. We see like iPads in the stores, as if by magically, gluing an iPad to the wall, the shopper will come in and go, oh my God, it's exactly what I wanted. It's not, so we need to make people feel. That's all. You need to make people feel something, feel connected, feel excited, feel delighted. We make people smile. Sometimes technology can be part of that solution, absolutely. Every time I go to the airport, still, even though I do it hundreds of times a year, every time I drive my vehicle into the car park, I smile when the barrier goes up automatically because it reads my registration. Every time I feel like James Bond. It's ridiculous. I know the system, that's technology. That's okay, very simple technology, reads the plate, links to the database, knows I'm a regular customer, charges my credit card, all simple. But I don't have to press the button for a ticket. I feel special when that moment happens, so I feel something. So there are times when technology is part of the solution, but most times it's about creative use of data or making someone feel special. Technology can certainly be the background there, using my data to make me feel special, but human interaction is probably the most important part still. So when I get on a plane with, let's say, British Airways, at some point the hostess, the head of the cabin crew will come down to me and they will say, Mr. Hughes, welcome back. Lovely to have you back with us again. Can I get you your usual drink? Now, I've never met this person before. I'm not stupid. I know that, on her piece of paper, she's got my loyalty points. She can see I'm a gold flyer. She has my name. The database has pulled my drink preference that I've logged years ago. So she can come down with that drink, make me feel special with some eye contact in the story. But that's the technology part, allowing her to do the human part. And those two things that we need to put together. And in retail, I think we have so much technology from facial recognition. The worst fail, actually, is to get an email from a store or a brand that makes you feel special, and then to walk into their store the next day and nobody knows you. And you think, well, you were talking to me yesterday as if you knew me, and now you have no idea who I am. Or they try and sell you something that you just bought online. So like it's the worst. So we need to get better at that in retail. We need to get human. I call it silicone versus soul. So yes, we have all the data technology, but never rely on technology to build your connection with the consumer. We have to have creative use of data, imagination of the human in there, and CX is always about making someone smile, and really the human will always do that. So
it's so easy.
Sometimes so easy. I'll tell you a story. There's a really famous story from Virgin Airlines. This family were moving home from the UK to the US. They turn up at the airport and the son is holding his goldfish in his hand at the check-in desk, and the checkout operator obviously looks and thinks, well, you can't fly with a goldfish. It's an animal, first of all. You can't bring an animal to the States, and secondly, it's more than 100 mils of water, and lots of complications. So she starts to say to them, "No, sorry, you can't bring that on the plane." And as he tears up, because he's moving house and moving country, and she says, "Oh, sorry, you can't bring that on the plane because he's got to travel with all the other goldfish in the special VIP goldfish section of the plane." So she takes the goldfish from the boy, and when the family go off, she photographs. She photographs the goldfish, sends it to her colleagues in the States, who, while the plane is in the air, run out of the airport, buy another goldfish. So when that family land in Atlanta, at the top of the walkway, there's a Virgin Airlines employee holding his goldfish. No, he got away with it. All goldfish look the same. Come on. Do you have kids? All goldfish look the same. So
I would never buy that.
This idea, no, never buy one. But that idea of that moment, that Virgin Airlines employee saw the problem, didn't have to call Richard Branson and ask permission for her colleagues to leave the airport in America to buy goldfish, because he's already given his people that permission to, see the problem, solve the problem, and connect with the consumer. And that story, of course, you can imagine how happy the little boy was, but of course everybody gets told that story today. Yeah. So it's about, CX is always about humanizing the experience to the point where people will talk about your brand.
I find it too much generalization to talk about generations in a way, but still it's probably appropriate in this context. So what are your thoughts on Gen Z, as you call it?
Yeah.
Is it a very value-driven consumer we're talking about?
From a price point of view? Like value? No. Their values are certainly very different. No, Gen Z, I'm very comfortable talking about Gen Z because I firmly believe that they are one of the biggest step changes in consumer behavior that we'll have for a long, long time. The millennials we all got very excited about, but actually millennials were just a warm-up. They were the support act. They were a generation that went from analog to digital, whereas Gen Z are the first generation that are growing up inside the digital reality of an omni-channel world. They will demand more from our businesses than millennials ever did. The millennials still kind of remember the old ways as well, whereas Gen Z don't. Gen Z just demand everything now. Everything needs to be flexible, seamless, frictionless, one touch, one click. Everything is instant. They have attention spans of a goldfish. They demand personalization. They demand that emotive engagement. So they're a very demanding group of consumers.
Also sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, going back to that point I made earlier about authenticity, they are a generation that want to connect with you through your why. So why do you exist? And if the answer is to make money as a business, they're not they appreciate that you have to make profit, they're not stupid, but they do want your why to be something more, more tangible that they can then tell your story about or they can identify with. So sustainability is one, and there are other things that matter to them. I mean, convenience also, and still luxury is a big thing for them also. This is the idea that Gen Z just want kind of simple stuff. No, they want luxury also, and so they will be the biggest group of consumers in the world next year, demographically. If we take those 6 groups: traditionalists, boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, and Alpha, Gen Z will be the biggest next year, and they will also definitely have the most influence and reach on brands and businesses for the next 10 years.
What is your best tip for making the world a better place in the future?
Ooh, the world a better place. Listening. I don't think we listen enough. I think in our current, and particularly again through the way we now interact digitally, I think what I've got to say as a person seems to be more important than what I need to hear from other people. So I think we're all far too busy saying our part and giving our opinions, and we're not spending enough time just listening to what other people are really saying, or their cries for help. We're all too busy rushing around trying to do too much. I think just the simple messages that you'd get from the Dalai Lama would be sit, breathe, listen. And I think we all need more of that.
Do you have a good reading tip?
A reading tip? I'm actually just finishing a book that was given to me by a very good friend called Jitterbug Perfume. Jitterbug Perfume is quite an old book actually, written by a guy called Tom Collins. It's a book about immortality, sexuality and spirituality. Very funny. It's a non-linear book, so if you need your books to be linear narrative, then don't buy it. But it is a great book, and it makes you wonder about things like sexuality, the intersection of sexuality and spirituality, and it's a book about immortality. So yeah, it's quite a good read.
Wow. Who do you think I should interview?
Who should you interview in the world? Oh wow, that's a huge question, man. Who should you interview? People who have failed at things. Okay. Interview people who have failed at stuff. People who get interviewed usually are the people who have succeeded at stuff, isn't it? You know, it's people who have made it to the top of the pyramid, and that's why they're famous, and that's why they get interviewed. I'm here because you reckon I'm an expert because I just stepped off the stage. But actually, I find in my life the people that are most interesting are the people that have failed repeatedly, but are still trying because that makes them interesting. And their stories, we learn by our mistakes. If you haven't made enough mistakes, then you haven't really grown or learned at all. I teach my kids all the time. Every time they make a mistake, I always teach them to celebrate it, celebrate the mistake. You know, if you keep making the same mistake again and again, that's just stupidity. But you know, no harm in making mistakes. Take the risk, make the mistake, learn from the mistake. I always apologize for your mistakes if you've hurt someone else, but keep doing them, keep making mistakes, because it's by making mistakes you build blocks that you climb on to achieve what you're going to achieve at some point. So yeah, interview people who failed at stuff.
Great. Thank you so much, Ken Hughes, for visiting Här Framtiden. You can find everything you need to know on kenhughes.info. Right? Great. Thank you so much for visiting, and I hope you have a nice time.
You're welcome. I enjoyed the conversation.
And everything you need to know about Här Framtiden can be found on härframtiden.se. This is from Retail Experience Live, Kista Mässan, Stockholm. Thank you for listening.